My name is Sophia Chen, and 8 months ago, I did something that still haunts me every single day. After being unfairly fired from my dream job, I sold my former company's most valuable trade secrets to their biggest competitor for $2.3 million. I thought I was getting revenge on the people who had destroyed my career and betrayed my trust. What I didn't realize was that my act of corporate espionage would put 847 innocent employees at risk of losing their jobs. What I didn't understand was that the executives who had wronged me would be fine, while the regular workers, people just like me, would suffer the consequences of my decision. Today, I'm going to tell you how I went from being a loyal employee to a corporate spy, and then how I risked everything to undo the damage I had caused. This isn't a story about getting revenge. It's a story about learning that sometimes the hardest person to forgive is yourself. If you've ever made a decision in anger that you later regretted, if you've ever had to choose between money and doing what's right, hit that like button and subscribe for a story about redemption, conscience, and what it really means to make amends. Because sometimes the biggest betrayal isn't what others do to you, it's what you do to yourself when you abandon your values for revenge. I spent 6 years at Meridian Technologies, a mid-sized software company that specialized in financial analytics platforms. It wasn't a glamorous job, but I loved it. As a senior systems architect, I was responsible for designing and implementing the core algorithms that made our software faster and more accurate than our competitors. I started as a junior developer straight out of college and worked my way up through pure dedication and long hours. While my colleagues left the office at 5 p.m., I stayed until 8 or 9, perfecting code, optimizing systems, and learning everything I could about our industry. My supervisor, Michael Torres, became something of a mentor to me. "Sophia," he would say during my performance reviews, "you have something special. You don't just write code, you understand the business. That's rare." Over the years, I became integral to Meridian's success. I designed the proprietary algorithms that powered our flagship product, Meridian Analytics Pro. I developed the security protocols that protected our clients' sensitive financial data. I even helped create the machine learning models that gave us a significant competitive advantage in the market. The work was challenging and intellectually stimulating. More importantly, I felt like I was part of something meaningful. Our software helped small businesses make better financial decisions, assisted banks in detecting fraud, and enabled investment firms to serve their clients more effectively. By my 5th year, I was earning $145,000 annually plus bonuses, and I had been promoted to senior systems architect with a team of 4 developers reporting to me. I had my own office, stock options, and the respect of my colleagues. But more than the money or status, I loved the feeling of building something important. Every line of code I wrote, every system I designed, felt like a contribution to the company's mission and success. That's why what happened next was so devastating. Last year, Meridian was acquired by Apex Corporation, a much larger tech conglomerate. The acquisition was presented to employees as a positive development that would provide new resources and opportunities for growth. "This merger will allow us to expand our reach and invest in cutting-edge research," CEO Jennifer Walsh announced during the all-hands meeting. "Your jobs are secure, and your contributions will be valued more than ever." For the first few months after the acquisition, things seemed normal. We continued working on the same projects, reporting to the same managers, and receiving the same paychecks. But gradually, things began to change. New executives from Apex started appearing in our offices, conducting efficiency assessments and redundancy analyses. They would observe our work, take notes, and ask pointed questions about our processes and responsibilities. "They're just learning about our operations," Michael assured me when I expressed concern. "It's normal for new management to want to understand what we do." But I had a growing sense that something was wrong. The assessments felt less like learning exercises and more like evaluations to determine who could be eliminated. The blow came on a Tuesday morning in March. I arrived at the office to find an email requesting my immediate presence in HR. When I walked into the conference room, I was met by Linda Harrison from Human Resources, David Kim from Apex Corporate, and surprisingly, my mentor Michael Torres. "Sophia, please have a seat," Linda said with forced professionalism. "We need to discuss some concerns that have been raised about your performance." My heart started racing. Performance concerns. I had just completed our most successful project launch in company history. My team had delivered the new Meridian Analytics Pro update 3 weeks ahead of schedule and 15% under budget. David Kim, whom I had never met before that day, opened a folder and began reading from what appeared to be a prepared statement. Miss Chen, our review of your recent work has identified several areas of concern regarding your collaboration with team members and adherence to company protocols. I'm sorry, what specific concerns? I asked, genuinely confused. There have been reports of insubordination, failure to follow proper channels for system modifications, and resistance to new management directives, David continued, still reading from his script. I looked at Michael, expecting him to defend me, or at least clarify what this was about. Instead, he avoided eye contact and stared at his hands. Michael, what reports? What insubordination? I've never received any negative feedback about my work or behavior. Michael finally looked up, his expression pained. Sophia, there have been incidents. Your questioning of the new efficiency protocols, your resistance to some of the proposed system changes. I was stunned. You mean when I pointed out that the proposed changes would reduce system security and slow down processing times? When I provided data showing why certain protocols wouldn't work with our existing architecture? That's exactly what I'm talking about, David interjected. This kind of argumentative behavior and resistance to change is not what Apex expects from its employees. The conversation that followed was surreal. Every instance where I had provided professional feedback, raised legitimate technical concerns, or suggested improvements was being reframed as insubordination or poor performance. When I had questioned why we were changing a security protocol that was working perfectly, that was resistance to innovation. When I had provided detailed analysis showing why a proposed system modification would cause problems, that was negative attitude toward progress. When I had asked for clarification about new procedures that seemed to contradict our established best practices, that was challenging authority inappropriately. This is ridiculous, I said, my voice rising despite my efforts to stay calm. I've been one of your most dedicated employees for 6 years. I've never had a negative performance review. I've contributed more to this company's success than almost anyone else here. Miss Chen, Linda said with practiced sympathy, we understand this is difficult, but the decision has been made. We're terminating your employment effective immediately. What decision? By whom? I haven't had any warnings, any performance improvement plans, any opportunity to address these alleged issues. David Kim closed his folder with finality. The decision comes from Apex executive leadership based on a comprehensive review of your fit with our corporate culture and values. That's when I realized what was really happening. This wasn't about performance or behavior. This was about eliminating expensive senior employees and replacing them with cheaper alternatives. The efficiency assessment had been a cost-cutting exercise disguised as a management review. Michael, I said, turning to the man who had mentored me for years, you know this is wrong. You know I've been a good employee and a valuable team member. Michael's response broke my heart. Sophia, sometimes companies have to make difficult decisions for the greater good. I think this transition will be better for everyone. The greater good. He was choosing to side with new management over an employee who had been loyal to him and the company for 6 years. Security escorted me out of the building within an hour. I wasn't allowed to say goodbye to my team, clean out my desk properly, or even finish the projects I had been working on. They handed me a box of personal items that someone else had packed and watched me walk to my car like I was a criminal. The severance package was insultingly small, 2 weeks' pay, and the acceleration of stock options that had lost most of their value since the Apex acquisition. As I drove home that day, I wasn't just angry about losing my job. I was devastated by the betrayal of people I had trusted and respected. Michael's willingness to throw me under the bus to protect his own position hurt more than the termination itself. For the first month after my termination, I focused on job searching and trying to process what had happened to me. The market for senior systems architects was competitive, and many companies were hesitant to hire someone who had been terminated. Even though I had stellar references from colleagues outside of management, I was burning through my savings, struggling with depression, and beginning to question my own professional judgment. Maybe I had been too argumentative. Maybe I should have been more compliant with the new management's directives. That's when I received the LinkedIn message that would change everything. Hi, Sophia. I'm Robert Chang, Director of Technology Acquisition at Zenith Systems. I've been following your career and was sorry to hear about your departure from Meridian. I'd love to discuss some opportunities that might interest you. Would you be available for a confidential conversation? Zenith Systems was Meridian's biggest competitor in the financial analytics software space. They had been trying to gain market share against Meridian Analytics Pro for years, but had struggled to match our performance and security features. I agreed to meet Robert at a coffee shop downtown, thinking it might be a legitimate job opportunity. Robert was professional, charismatic, and seemed genuinely interested in my experience and expertise. Sophia, your reputation in the industry is impressive, he said, after we had been talking for about 20 minutes. "Your work on the Meridian Analytics Pro algorithms is particularly noteworthy." "Thank you. It was challenging and rewarding work. I imagine you have deep knowledge of how those systems function, the underlying architecture, the optimization techniques." Something in his tone made me cautious. "Well, yes, but I'm bound by confidentiality agreements and non-disclosure obligations from my time at Meridian." Robert smiled warmly. Of course. I completely understand. I'm not asking you to violate any agreements. I'm just impressed by what you accomplished there." The conversation continued for another hour, with Robert asking increasingly specific questions about Meridian's technology stack, development processes, and competitive strategies. He was subtle about it, but I began to realize this wasn't really a job interview. At the end of our meeting, Robert made his real offer. "Sophia, I want to be direct with you. Zenith is developing a new analytics platform that we believe could revolutionize the industry. We're looking for experienced consultants who can help us avoid some of the common pitfalls and development challenges that plague complex software projects." He paused, watching my reaction carefully. "The consulting arrangement would be very lucrative. $500,000 for 6 months of part-time advisory work. All perfectly legal and above board. We're not asking for any proprietary information or trade secrets. We just want the benefit of your general expertise and industry knowledge. $500,000. It was more than 3 years of my former salary for 6 months of work." "What exactly would this advisory work involve?" I asked. "Primarily high-level guidance on software architecture decisions, optimization strategies, and user experience design. Nothing that would violate your NDAs or expose you to any legal risk." I told Robert I needed time to think about it, but as I drove home, I was already imagining how that money could change my situation. I could pay off my student loans, build a substantial emergency fund, and have the financial security to be selective about my next permanent position. Over the next week, Robert called twice to follow up, each time emphasizing the generous compensation and limited time commitment. He also mentioned that Zenith was planning to hire aggressively in the next year and that demonstrating my value as a consultant could lead to a full-time executive position. "We're not just buying your expertise, Sophia," he said during our second call. "We're investing in a potential long-term partnership." I wanted to believe that this was a legitimate opportunity. I wanted to believe that Robert's interest in my general expertise was honest and that I could accept the consulting arrangement without compromising my integrity. But deep down, I knew what Zenith really wanted. They wanted the specific details of how Meridian Analytics Pro worked. They wanted our algorithms, our security protocols, and our competitive advantages. They wanted me to give them everything I had built at Meridian so they could copy it or surpass it. The rational part of my mind knew this was wrong. The professional part of my brain understood that accepting Robert's offer would be a betrayal of my former colleagues and the company I had helped build. But the angry, hurt, financially stressed part of me whispered different arguments. Meridian had betrayed me first. They had thrown away 6 years of loyalty and dedication for corporate politics and cost-cutting. Michael had abandoned me when I needed support. Why should I protect a company that had treated me so poorly? I called Robert back 3 days later and accepted his consulting offer. We met at his office the following week to sign the consulting agreement and discuss the scope of work. "I'm glad you decided to work with us, Sophia," Robert said as I reviewed the contract. "Your expertise is going to be invaluable to our development team." The contract was cleverly written. On paper, it looked completely legitimate. I was being hired to provide general software architecture consulting and industry best practices guidance. There was no explicit mention of Meridian technologies, trade secrets, or proprietary information. But the questions Robert asked during our first official consulting session made his real intentions clear. "Sophia, hypothetically speaking, if you were designing a financial analytics platform from scratch today, what specific algorithms would you use for real-time data processing? If you wanted to optimize query response times for large datasets, what indexing strategies have you found most effective? What security protocols do you think are essential for protecting sensitive financial data in a cloud-based environment?" Each question was phrased hypothetically, but Robert was asking for specific details about the systems I had designed at Meridian. I knew exactly what he wanted, and I found myself providing it. I told myself I was just sharing general industry knowledge. I rationalized that these were common techniques that any experienced developer would know. I convinced myself that I wasn't really betraying any secrets. But with each answer I gave, with each technical detail I shared, I was essentially handing over the blueprint for Meridian Analytics Pro's competitive advantages. The consulting arrangement continued for 2 months. I provided Zenith with detailed information about the machine learning algorithms that powered our predictive analytics, the database optimization techniques that made our queries faster than competitors, the security architecture that protected client data, the user interface design principles that made our software more intuitive, the integration protocols that allowed seamless connection with third-party systems. In exchange, I received payments totaling $2.3 million. Far more than the original $500,000 Robert had mentioned. The new Zenith Analytics platform is going to be revolutionary. That night, I should have felt victorious. I had turned my termination from Meridian into a multi-million-dollar consulting opportunity. I had gotten revenge on the company that had treated me poorly while setting myself up for financial security. Instead, I felt sick. I couldn't sleep, couldn't eat, couldn't focus on anything except what I had done. I had betrayed 6 years of work, hundreds of colleagues who had trusted me, and my own professional integrity for money. The worst part was realizing that my actions wouldn't hurt the executives who had wronged me. David Kim from Apex would be fine. Linda from HR would keep her job. Even Michael Torres would probably survive any corporate restructuring. But the junior developers on my former team, the customer service representatives who supported our clients, the sales staff who depended on our product's competitive advantages, they would be the ones who suffered when Zenith launched a superior competing product using the information I had provided. I tried to justify my actions by focusing on how Meridian had treated me. They had been unfair, dishonest, and disloyal. I deserved compensation for my contributions to the company's success, but no amount of rationalization could eliminate the growing certainty that I had made a terrible mistake. Each payment came with increasingly urgent requests for more specific technical details. Sophia, this information has been incredibly valuable, Robert told me during our final consulting session. Our development team has made breakthrough progress based on your guidance. The full weight of what I had done hit me 6 weeks later when I read a business news article about Zenith Systems' upcoming product launch. Zenith Systems announces revolutionary analytics platform. Zenith Analytics Pro promises to disrupt financial software market. The article quoted Robert Chang extensively about the new platform's capabilities. Zenith Analytics Pro represents a quantum leap forward in financial analytics technology. Our proprietary algorithms process data 40% faster than existing solutions, while providing unprecedented security and user experience. We're confident this platform will establish Zenith as the industry leader. Every feature he described, every technical advantage he touted, was based on the work I had done at Meridian. Zenith hadn't innovated or created anything new. They had simply copied our technology using the detailed information I had provided. But the article also included quotes from industry analysts about the potential market impact. If Zenith Analytics Pro delivers on these promises, it could significantly erode Meridian Technologies' market position. Meridian has been the industry leader for years, but this new platform appears to match or exceed their capabilities while potentially offering better pricing. Companies like Meridian, which depend heavily on technological differentiation, are vulnerable when competitors achieve feature parity. We could see significant market share shifts and potential job losses at companies that fail to adapt. Job losses. The phrase jumped off the page and hit me like a physical blow. I immediately researched Meridian's recent financial performance and found that the company was already struggling after the Apex acquisition. Revenue growth had slowed, several key clients had delayed contract renewals, and there were rumors of cost-cutting measures and potential layoffs. If Zenith launched a superior competing product that eliminated Meridian's technological advantages, the impact on my former company could be devastating. I thought about my former teammates, people like Jennifer Walsh, a single mother of 2 who worked in quality assurance, Marcus Rodriguez, a recent college graduate who had just bought his first house, Sarah Kim, who was supporting her elderly parents while paying for her daughter's college tuition. These weren't faceless corporate executives. They were real people with real responsibilities who had done nothing wrong except work for a company that had made poor management decisions. I had gotten my revenge on Meridian, but in the process, I was potentially destroying the livelihoods of innocent people who had been my colleagues and friends. The $2.3 million in my bank account suddenly felt like blood money. I started having panic attacks. I couldn't concentrate on job applications or consulting opportunities. I spent hours researching Meridian's employee count, trying to calculate how many people might lose their jobs if Zenith's new platform succeeded. 847 employees. That's how many people worked at Meridian Technologies. 847 people whose financial security I had potentially jeopardized because I wanted revenge on a handful of executives who had treated me poorly. For the first time since my termination, I called my former colleague, Lisa Park, one of the few people at Meridian who had stayed in touch with me after I was fired. "Sophia, it's so good to hear from you," Lisa said warmly. "How are you doing? Have you found a new position yet?" I'm doing okay," I lied. "How are things at Meridian?" Lisa's tone became more serious. "Honestly, it's been tough. There have been more layoffs since you left. The new management from Apex is cutting costs everywhere. People are scared about job security." "How many layoffs?" "About 50 people so far, mostly from support and administrative roles. But there are rumors that they're planning more significant reductions if our market position doesn't improve." My stomach twisted with guilt and nausea. People were already losing their jobs, and I was about to make the situation much worse. "Lisa, hypothetically speaking, what would happen to the company if a major competitor launched a platform that was significantly better than Meridian Analytics Pro?" "That would be catastrophic," Lisa replied without hesitation. "Our entire business model is built on having the best technology in the market. If we lost that advantage, I don't think the company would survive." After we hung up, I sat in my apartment, staring at my laptop screen, trying to figure out how to undo what I had done. I spent the next week researching everything I could about Zenith's development timeline and launch plans. According to industry reports, Zenith Analytics Pro was scheduled to launch in 3 months, with beta testing beginning in 6 weeks. If I was going to prevent the disaster I had helped create, I had very little time to act. My first instinct was to contact Meridian directly and confess what I had done, but I quickly realized that approach would likely result in criminal charges against me while doing nothing to prevent Zenith's product launch. Instead, I decided to use my insider knowledge of Zenith's plans to help Meridian prepare a defensive strategy. I created an anonymous email account and sent a detailed message to Jennifer Walsh, Meridian's CEO. "Ms. Walsh, I am writing to inform you that Zenith Systems has obtained detailed information about Meridian Analytics Pro's architecture and is planning to launch a competing platform that copies your core technology. The launch is scheduled for a specific date and will likely include the following features and capabilities." Detailed list. This information comes from a reliable source within Zenith's development team. "I recommend that Meridian take immediate legal action to protect its intellectual property and consider accelerating development of next-generation features to maintain competitive advantage. I apologize for the anonymity of this communication, but I hope this information will help protect Meridian's employees and market position." I sent similar anonymous warnings to several technology journalists and industry analysts, hoping to generate media attention that might slow down or complicate Zenith's launch. But I knew these warnings wouldn't be enough. Even if Meridian took legal action, intellectual property lawsuits take years to resolve, and Zenith could launch their product while litigation was pending. The only way to truly stop what I had set in motion was to undermine Zenith's development efforts from the inside. I contacted Robert Chang and told him I was interested in expanding our consulting arrangement. "Robert, I've been thinking about our previous conversations regarding a potential full-time position at Zenith. I'm very interested in joining your team permanently." Robert was enthusiastic. "Sophia, that's fantastic news. Your consulting work has been invaluable to our development process. I think you'd be perfect for a senior architecture director role." "I'd love to discuss that. Would it be possible for me to visit your development facility and meet with the team before making a final decision?" "Absolutely. When would be convenient for you?" 2 days later, I was walking through Zenith's Secure Development Center, observing the progress on Zenith Analytics Pro and looking for opportunities to sabotage the project without getting caught. What I found was worse than I had imagined. Zenith hadn't just used my information to copy Meridian's technology. They had improved upon it. The Zenith Analytics Pro platform was genuinely superior to anything Meridian had developed. Their development team had taken the foundation I provided and enhanced it with additional features, better optimization, and more advanced security protocols. If this product launched successfully, it wouldn't just compete with Meridian, it would completely dominate the market. During my facility tour, I was introduced to Dr. Amy Chen, Zenith's lead security architect, who was implementing the security protocols I had described from Meridian. "Sophia, your consulting insights about financial data protection have been incredibly valuable," Dr. Chen told me. "We've been able to implement security measures that go far beyond industry standards." "That's great to hear," I replied, while mentally cataloging every detail of their security infrastructure. I spent 3 hours at Zenith's facility, taking careful notes about their development timeline, testing procedures, and launch strategy. I also identified several critical vulnerabilities in their systems that I could potentially exploit. But as I prepared to leave, Robert introduced me to someone who changed everything. Sophia, I'd like you to meet Janet Martinez. She's our lead systems developer and will probably be your closest collaborator if you join our team. Janet shook my hand warmly. It's such a pleasure to meet you, Sophia. Robert has told me so much about your expertise. I've been working in financial software for 8 years, and I've always admired the elegance of Meridian Analytics Pro's architecture. As we talked, I learned that Janet had been laid off from her previous job 6 months earlier and was supporting her disabled husband and 2 young children. This position at Zenith was her lifeline, first stable, well-paying job she'd been able to find after months of unemployment. This project has been amazing to work on, Janet continued enthusiastically. It's the kind of innovative, challenging work that got me into software development in the first place. Plus, if Zenith Analytics Pro is as successful as we think it will be, the company is planning to hire another 50 developers within the next year. Another 50 developers, 50 people who would get good jobs if the project succeeded, 50 families who would benefit from Zenith's success. I realized then that sabotaging Zenith's project wouldn't just save jobs at Meridian. It would also eliminate jobs at Zenith. I would be trading one group of innocent employees for another. That night, I sat in my apartment, surrounded by notes about Zenith's vulnerabilities and Meridian's warnings, trying to figure out what to do. I had 3 options: sabotage Zenith's project and protect Meridian's employees at the expense of Zenith's employees, do nothing and let Zenith Analytics Pro launch, knowing it would likely destroy Meridian, find a way to minimize harm to both companies. The third option seemed impossible, but I couldn't bring myself to choose between 2 groups of innocent people who would suffer because of my decisions. That's when I remembered something Robert had mentioned during my facility visit. Zenith was planning to launch Zenith Analytics Pro at a significantly lower price point than Meridian Analytics Pro, using their cost advantages to undercut Meridian's pricing. What if both companies could succeed by serving different market segments? I spent the next week developing a comprehensive analysis of the financial analytics software market, identifying opportunities for differentiation and specialization that could allow both platforms to coexist profitably. Then I did something I had never imagined I would do. I called Michael Torres at Meridian. Michael, this is Sophia Chen. I know our last conversation was difficult, but I have information that could be crucial for Meridian's future. I need to speak with you and Jennifer Walsh immediately. Michael was skeptical, but agreed to arrange a meeting. 3 days later, I was sitting in a Meridian conference room with Michael, Jennifer Walsh, and 2 other executives I didn't recognize. Sophia, I have to ask, why are you here? Jennifer said bluntly. After your termination, I wouldn't have expected you to be interested in helping Meridian. I took a deep breath and made the most important decision of my professional life. Because I made a mistake that I need to fix. I provided confidential information about Meridian Analytics Pro to Zenith Systems, and they're using it to develop a competing platform that could destroy this company. The silence in the room was deafening. Michael looked like he had been physically struck. Jennifer's expression shifted from confusion to anger to calculation. Are you telling us that you committed corporate espionage? One of the executives asked. Yes, and I'm here to help you minimize the damage and protect the jobs of people who don't deserve to suffer because of what I did. For the next 2 hours, I provided Meridian's leadership with detailed information about Zenith's development timeline, feature set, pricing strategy, and launch plans. I also presented my analysis of market differentiation opportunities that could allow both companies to succeed. If Meridian focuses on enterprise clients and advanced customization, while Zenith targets small to medium businesses with standardized solutions, there's room for both platforms in the market, I explained. You'll need to accelerate development of enterprise-specific features and adjust your pricing strategy, but you can maintain your market position. Jennifer listened carefully to my presentation, asking detailed questions about implementation timelines and competitive positioning. Sophia, this information is valuable, but it doesn't change the fact that you violated your confidentiality agreements and potentially committed federal crimes, she said finally. I understand that. I'm prepared to face whatever legal consequences result from my actions, but I wanted to give Meridian the best possible chance to survive what's coming. Michael spoke for the first time since my confession. Why? Why help us after everything that happened? Because 847 people work here. Most of them had nothing to do with my termination, and they don't deserve to lose their jobs because because I wanted revenge on a few executives. Jennifer and her team ultimately decided not to pursue criminal charges against me, focusing instead on implementing the defensive strategies I had outlined. They also hired me as a temporary consultant to help with the transition, a decision that surprised everyone, including me. You created this problem, Sophia, Jennifer explained. You're the best qualified person to help us solve it. Over the next 3 months, I worked more hours than I ever had in my life, helping Meridian pivot their platform toward enterprise clients while developing new features that would differentiate them from Zenith's offering. When Zenith Analytics Pro launched, it was successful but not devastating. Meridian lost some market share but retained most of their enterprise clients and avoided the massive layoffs that seemed inevitable. Zenith hired their 50 new developers and established themselves as a major player in the small business market segment. Both companies survived, and most importantly, the employees at both companies kept their jobs. I returned the $2.3 million to Zenith, claiming it was payment for consulting work that I couldn't complete. Robert was disappointed but understanding, and we parted on professional terms. Today, I work as an independent consultant specializing in cybersecurity and corporate ethics. I make less money than I did at Meridian, but I sleep well at night knowing that I chose to do the right thing, even when it was difficult and expensive. My experience taught me that revenge is a luxury that often costs more than you can afford to pay. It taught me that integrity isn't about being perfect. It's about making amends when you make mistakes. Most importantly, it taught me that the people who suffer most from corporate conflicts are usually the ones who had nothing to do with creating them. If this story resonated with you, if you've ever had to choose between money and doing what's right, hit that like button and subscribe for more stories about redemption and second chances. Remember, it's never too late to make the right choice, even if it means admitting you were wrong and paying the price for your mistakes. Thank you for listening, and remember that sometimes the most courageous thing you can do is face the consequences of your actions and try to make things right.